Couple of seconds, more people to show up, or should we just start rolling?
Yeah, I'm thinking, guys, 3 of us are family.
These are all family.
We really don't have that many, we can make it more round table
Yeah,
discussion.
maybe we should go out in front out here, see if I can round some people up.
No. Only if they're interested, otherwise don't. Okay. We don't need heads here.
We don't know.
End of the day, right? So people are getting out, trying to make sure they catch the flight before the storm.
Or they're already happy now.
Yeah, that's true. Actually. Happy hour started already? But we were checking on you to see if you knew. Let's ask a simple question. Are you folks interested in the topic, or would you like to skip? We don't want to force it.
I don't know anything about it.
Well, then, let's roll the show, man.
Let's make it a discussion.
Let's roll the show.
All right, and we have an MC here. Whether you like it or not.
That's right. Like it or not, we're gonna talk about.
Yeah.
Krishna.
You can skip the intros. It's
All right, we don't have to do this. We're just gonna say that he's been around a long time and he's been doing all kind of good stuff.
Yeah, there you go.
And looks like he's not only has he done good stuff for us, but for everybody else in the industry.
Oh, there you go.
So he's good. He's an engineer to an entrepreneur. And now he's making a business out of Internet of Things.
And that's my colleague, Barry Kelly. Yeah. Barry has even more experience helping more people and more industries.
There we go.
In the emissions monitoring side. So he's the expert in terms of emissions monitoring. And I'm the software geek from Silicon Valley. Yeah. So that's why he's wearing a suit and I'm not. Yeah.
But no time.
Yeah, there you go. And the reason we wanted to talk about this is many companies, when they look at their emissions monitoring, they go in a more reactive mode. And we are part of the core industries where Flint Hill Resources, one of our sister companies, they take a more stewardship role, more proactive role, more holistic role in that one. And within the company, we have this philosophy that we can share best practices with our industry group and benefit everyone, right? So it's not a long presentation, but we thought we'll share some, approaches and ideas. So if you look at emissions monitoring at most facilities, it's a multi-headed monster, right? We deal with leak detection and repair, fence line, process safety, all kinds of stuff, whether it is from a compliance perspective or safety perspective, doesn't matter, right? But it's a multi-headed monster. So one of the challenges is this, right? It's really a mindset, stewardship or survival. If you take survival mindset, most companies will say, hey, there's a problem. There was an alarm. Let's go fix that. So typically it's driven by exceptions and anomalies. And then they go in and say, what's the easiest way to fix it? Cost effective, they call it, right? And then once they do it, they'll say, okay, we're done. They really don't think beyond that about getting more proactive about it. Until the next exception, we're done. So what happens is, even if they're improving their methods, it's a very spotty transformation. It's not proactively designed from a stewardship perspective. It's more about how do you survive each of the exceptions. But if you take the stewardship angle, it's very different. There, the drive is about getting the long-term, improvement, long-term benefits across the entire life cycle of emissions monitoring. Not just one aspect of it that's improving one piece of it at a time. And the whole idea there is, if you target the entire life cycle to do it right, you will likely achieve sustained transformation across that entire life cycle of operations. So Barry, of course, has been heading stewardship, environmental stewardship at Coke. So Barry, if you can give us a good lecture on what it is and why it is important.
Sure. So Krishna mentioned Coke Industries. It is a private company. Some people have called it the largest company no one's ever heard of. It varies year by year, but right now I think Cargill is considered the largest private company in the US and Coke is the second. That does give us a little bit of freedom to maybe define some things a little bit differently, whether it's ESG, whether it's sustainability. The term Krishna has there, stewardship, is one that's much more frequently used in Coke and the Coke companies. And when we're talking about from a stewardship piece, part of that is definitely emissions, right? It's what's crossing the fence line. How do the emissions off the products that we make impact the communities near us? If they're EJ communities or traditional communities, how does it impact those? So part of that's that emission piece. Part of it also is from a safety perspective, right? How do we maintain a safe work environment for our employees, our contractors, those that are on site, from a personal safety, but then also from a process safety perspective. So a lot of the things that Krishna has there about long-term benefits, life cycle kind of solutions, because we are a private company, we really are able to think more long-term on those, right? Not driven by a quarterly report on finance or those things. We are able to really look at longer-term ROIs and think, what do we want? What's a sustainable solution, even though it might cost us more upfront? What does it mean long-term? A lot of the programs that we work together on, these things like fence line monitoring, some of the solutions around terminals, that Vinod is very familiar with, some of the ones that are in plan for refineries and chemical plants are really focused. We look at them in that stewardship play. And you did hear, if you were at the keynote this morning, you heard some talk about EPA, or not just EPA, but the federal government using kind of an all of government approach to a lot of things like climate. We really are trying to think about stewardship that way. So when it comes to when we're reviewing options for a project, and one maybe has a certain kind of control and one doesn't, or one maybe would have carbon sequestration and maybe a different one doesn't, we try to include that stewardship thought in those. Sometimes it's hard to quantify that. Sometimes it doesn't actually have a dollar. Sometimes it has one, but it's a negative, right? It scares you a little bit. We're not in business to lose money, but we are able to think about from the stewardship perspective, how can we utilize that in the decisions that we make? Some of our folks always talk about don't have a pocket veto, right? Don't have an idea that you don't bring up from stewardship play just because you think, well, it's not going to add money, or that's going to cost the project, or that's going to impact. They always ask us, bring those up, be passionate about them, and help the decision makers then make the right decisions on that.
Yeah, one of the interesting things that Barry brought up is this quarterly, earnings report. We don't have that problem at Coke because it's a private company. It doesn't mean they're not focused on profits, but they take a long-term view of everything that says, if I get started, even if I look slow, even if I look loss-making at the beginning, does it lead to sustainable way of doing things going forward? And that does give me a lot of flexibility that I don't have to worry about quarterly Wall Street reports where they say, well, we made losses this quarter, and the share price goes down. Their share price never goes down. It only goes up all the time. Yeah. Because of the long-term perspective.
That's the hope, right?
Yeah.
That's the name.
What happens is in most companies, right? These initiatives start, and some idiot comes in as a career vice president, has a different agenda. They just muddy up the waters and walk away after they cannot deliver. And then, boy, it's so hard to recover from all that. But as part of the stewardship initiative, you need to have the right mindset for the people. That's why mindset is the first thing, right? Commitment, where even if somebody challenges, is that the right thing to do? Challenge is okay, not disruption. Right? The challenge is supposed to not let you go sideways too much, but keep going forward. Disruption is when you make people take a U-turn and go backwards. So the company is really good at managing that kind of a positive culture. And the stewardship is, a lot of people think stewardship is vision, right? It's actually more an execution. Right? lot of people have vision. If you go to some companies, the vision is a paragraph. And framed and put in the lobby. You go past that one, it's gone.
As soon as you pass the love into it.
Yeah. You say, oh, we strive to be the best at everything we do for our shareholders, for our customers and for community.
Yeah.
And then you go inside, everything stinks.
Yeah.
One more thing on that too, Krishna, to build on that, one of the really important pieces that we've seen is that you really do have to have a champion for those, whatever that idea, if it's a technology, if it's a concept, if it's an engagement that you want to do, you really have to have a champion at the right level. I'll use a plant manager of one of our refineries, for example, when we started coming up with the concept of sensors, and they're like, yes, test them in here, you can use it, you can use our resources. Then it was install them, right? They really were a champion for that and have helped people think differently, right? And that we wouldn't be where we are without that commitment. But also challenge you to think about yourself and whatever level you're working in, whatever sphere of influence you have, how can you be a champion for some of those things that will make emissions better, make results better, make performance better, and things better for people in your plant.
So if you look at, everybody says, what's the ROI, right? Everything is ROI. So if you take a survival mindset, you will see that the curve at the beginning stages is often much better than the green one for the stewardship. And a lot of people get very excited and say, see, you have to be reactive and piecemeal because you get return on investment quickly. But usually that's like a fixed interest savings bank account, right? Savings account, where it's 4%, 3%, 4%. But the stewardship angle, it builds very sustainably over time. And it never really comes down after that. Because as part of the stewardship, you cleaned up the whole system across the life cycle and made it a very sustainable change. That's why over time, that takes off. This guy still goes fluttering around. Maybe a positive, maybe a negative, maybe a neutral, right? But stewardship angle, it's been proven again and again and again. The longer term benefits outweigh the short term, spotty benefits. It's pretty amazing. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, it's always problematic when you do the short-term stuff.
Yeah, it is. But what happens
And
is,
it fixes.
Yeah.
Gotta keep fixing.
yeah, it's almost like, I heard an analogy for this. When you have a leaky faucet, you can buy a mop that's better and better and better. It's not gonna work. You gotta fix that leaky faucet. You can mop all you want. That faucet ain't stop.
Or a bigger,
Yeah.
Bigger mop, yeah.
keep finding bigger one.
Yeah.
A bigger bucket.
Mop faster, mop bigger, mop with more people. Yeah, so I think that's where a balanced approach is needed. Sometimes you do need quick fix. You cannot. My brother is into alternate medicine. So he says, if you follow that one over a year and a half, you'll be okay. But if you have a burst appendix, fix it now. You can't go for alternate method because you'll be in alternate universe.
There you go.
Yeah, so that's really where I think a pragmatic mix is needed. So if you look at, in the emissions applications, there are very compliance intensive aspects, right? Like LDOT. It's a very compliance intensive one. Some of the others are compliance plus early warning type, hybrid kind of focus areas. And some are extremely early warning only oriented areas. Now, where you are accountable, not only to a regulatory body, but also to potential EJ communities, etc., right? Go a little bit more on a stewardship kind of a fashion, because there it's very important to get that done right. But where you have a little bit of mix of this and that, you can start doing experiments first before you jump in quickly. So there is a potential to balance the whole approach between stewardship and survival, right? It doesn't always have to be all stewardship, because then you're really spending a lot of money And if it fails, he'll say, to hell with this stewardship, man. I should have been in survival mode all the time.
Yeah.
Right? It's no different from your 401k funds going into large cap, small cap, international funds, etc., and then bonds.
All bonds.
They're safe. Yeah. By the way, last 1.5 years, bonds were amazing compared to the rest of it, right? Yeah. So anyway, these are some of the really simple ideas we wanted to share in the interest of sharing best practices with the rest of the industry. That's it. Yeah. Yeah. So thank you. And I know it's end of the day.
That's it. That's the speed. We got.
That's it.
That's it. It's
So
not
I
also.
about your cool devices, but your, what kind of networks are you
Yeah.
using? Software.
Yeah.
Cool stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm looking for the brother to get the meat to death on the. So you're the champion in kung fu, that's why I assume.
I'm probably one of its biggest fans.
There you go.
Um,
You gotta have somebody like.
well, it's probably because I hated Elmer for a bit, right? You know, they say it's love your life or a life sentence. Well, a life sentence.
Yeah, everybody hates Elder.
Yeah.
Anybody who's doing it hates it.
And we publicly say we spent $50 million on a consent decree for one facility that just based on falsified LRP. Right, that was the foot in the door. We did the layer gas recovery, we did enhanced LDAR, we did low E, did a lot of things just for that. Kind of this approach though led us to approach EPA and just say, hey, we want to do something different. A partner can do it, and that kind of got this whole ball started on a leak detection sensor network, and that now we've got an AML approved for a couple of units to stop in method 21. That's all based on that kind of long game approach with it.
Cool. Cool. So that's a good cost benefit deal. You can get rid of method 21, throw it out the door.
Yeah, we can. It's interesting. That was part of our initial goal and ROI. We're looking on that. But like I was saying, as soon as we started putting them in, a lot of the leadership really felt that true value was really from a more process personal safety, just finding big leaks quicker, right? Being able to react to those as soon as they start.
Safety. In the businesses you guys are in, you can't have leaks.
Right.
Leaks are
Although
fun.
for smaller side, I think another benefit I would say is that it kind of saves a lot of times operators just making rounds every week or every month just to see things. There's nothing else is going on. They're on the roads for multiple different sites just to go and see where.
Yeah, this is in the case of remote term.
Yeah. The sensor, it's checking it for you, you don't need to go.
Yeah. So you're looking at, you guys have got smart valves and stuff, right? So you.
No, we are only sensors and software.
No,
No,
no valves.
no components, no.
Wow.
Yeah,
So sensors.
we don't like smart valves because if they're there, we can't sell our solution.
Yeah,
Well, I thought that was your solution. Apparently.
no, when we first started, we were, we were almost down to a sensor per, we were looking at everything from sensing tape to, before you know it, now we're, instead of monitoring 300,000 components, we're going to have 300,000 sensors, and we're going to be basically just out there replacing batteries. And it really did. It started kind of there and then kind of converged more to what it is now, that leak detection sensor network, where it's sensors, they're integrated. They take a reading every second and upload that. And every second the system looks at it and says, this sensor went up, this went down, this stayed the same, what this one did. Next second, what happened, what happened, what happened? Pairs it with wind data and is able to just generate a box that says, hey, there's an anomaly over here in this 10 by 10 or 20 by 20 box. You need to go look at it. Instead of I'm monitoring every connector, every valve, and then eventually I get over this. So it's more of that kind of targeted approach.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
Can you go there? Yeah, yeah, that would be. Sean, thank you.
Good to see you.
Glad to know business is going on.
Thanks. Yeah. You've probably been in here all day long, right?
in and out all day long, yeah, so, you know,
Sure
we,
do appreciate the break too.
we
Okay,
Yeah.
see you.
worked out well.
Did you get your thumb drive? Thank you. Got it. Okay, thank you.
So we're good?
Yep.
All right.